Hey there guys, gals, and non-binary pals, it's DMG and welcome back to Blitz. And today you are going to see my mastery replays in the E100. Out of my 100 games, I have only mastered this tank 3 times, and since I have hit win rate and damage targets in this tank, there's no reason for me to continue playing it. So if you do want to see me play it again, it will only be in ratings on stream, or in tournaments. Speaking of tournaments, I am currently in the Twister Cup right now with Straight Aim True. I hope you guys fly your straight banners. We did a great job a few days ago, or 2 days ago actually, against the clans Purple and Pincer, so hopefully we can have repeat performances. It's just nice to see how a team develops over the course as you kind of train them, work with them, and it's just been quite a good bit of fun just to do a tournament with players, you know, that are passionate about learning the strats and the nuances of competitive play. So it's been all a just a good whole event so far. I've enjoyed myself, even though we've gotten our butts whipped a few times. Anyways, back to the E100. This is a proper heavy tank, as Bushka would say, right? You know, when you were in the E75, or let's even like the let's try this. You were in the E75 and you were facing down an IS8 or something, and you'd shoot them for 460 and they'd shoot you for 420, and you'd be like, yeah, even though I took damage, you know, this is a good trade, right? Let's take that and make that difference even bigger. So now when the IS7 shoots me, he does 460, but when I shoot him, I do 640. Which would you rather deal, right? You know, the E100 is just a fantastic heavy tank. I like it much more than the mouse. People who usually support the mouse don't really have a good sense of map awareness unless you're like a fishy or a dragon, right? But past that, you know, the amount of good mouse drivers, or I mean, even if you're a good mouse driver, you can't put your game into the gun. Wait, I just said that backwards. Like, you can't put your gun into the game quick enough to use it as like a tank. You know, so while this tank may not have just the superior red areas that the mouse has, this tank can do some work. And against like T57 heavies on like 580 hit points, you don't get that kind of ability in the mouse, but here in the E100, you're able to absolutely destroy them. Come around the corner, put a nice dose of alpha into them, put, you know, 960, or is that maybe? I think that's 1,000, I'm not really sure, but killing a bat chat, you know, pretty easy to do when you're in an E100, a lot harder to do when you're in a mouse. This tank has mobility. It goes 35 kilometers an hour compared to the mouse's what? 25 or 20 most of the time, right? The gun, although you're a slight bit less accurate, you know, I always run calibrated shells on my I ran calibrated shells for every game in my E100. 100 games, 72% win rate, and just a little bit over 3,300 average damage over 100 games. I did that because I'm able to penetrate targets with calibrated shells. You go all the way up to what, nearing 370 millimeters of heat penetration if you run calibrated shells, and you go up to 271 on your AP rounds. You also get a nice 10% boost to your HE rounds, which allow you to more comfortably do damage in situations where heat and AP is not effective. Anyways, you saw that was like my second, I forget, I think that was my third mastery. I put my third mastery first because it was the lowest damage game. But this is actually the first mastery I had in the E100. I think it was like the third or fourth game out of my 100 games. It was, you can see alpha, you know, they can't shoot you if they're hurting really bad or if they're dead, right? And putting 650 across in the beginning of the game is such a good way to play. I mean, compared to, you know, your 113s, right, that, you know, have that high DPM, but they can't trade very well. And that's what I love about the E100, because it is a heavy tank. You know, it's a classic heavy tank. I would say this is more of a heavy tank than a mouse, because a mouse is just too, I don't want to say too heavy, but it's just too immobile. You know, you got to have some mobility even though you're a heavy tank. And this is why I fully recommend the E100 over the mouse. and why I like it for competitive, because it has its fantastic HE, superior heat penetration. You can still angle the tank and get bounces. Part of the reason why the armor works is that people think that they can pen it with standard or even heat and they will bounce, whereas the mouse, they'll just run away and shoot something else. It kind of reminds you of the situation of the pre-buff E3, where its armor was great, but it's so slow that people would just shoot something else, right? Because E3 could never really get into battle. But in the E100's case, I'm able to put 700 rolls into leopards, and well, that's using AP, right? We haven't even started to really touch on all the nifty uses for HE, like for base resets, hitting certain heavy tanks for 400 to 500 alpha in HE roll, max rolling for 800 as you just saw there against an IS-7. But the E100's armor is decent, thick side skirts. When you equip the enhanced armor, it gives you a little bit more room for your turret angle, or a little bit more wiggle room. That's what I meant to say. A little bit more wiggle room for your turret angle, allowing you to bounce shells more efficiently and mitigate damage. 960 on your HE shells allows you to roll slightly above and kill waffle tractors, or 2/3 health waffle tractors in one shot. The E100 is just the superior heavy tank. I know some people are really diehard about the mouse simply because it's has a superior armor profile in most cases. But if you angle the E100 well, you're getting pretty much the same bang for buck on your armor profile. Also, 960 into the bat chat. You don't get that on the mouse. Doing these mounds of alpha really make the difference in heavy tank situations where trading is so important. Oh, this E50M, man. I don't know what he's doing, but I really wanted to ram this guy. But regardless, game ends. Fantastic job on Canal for about 5,400 or 5,600 damage. Really good game there. And, the E100 is the better super heavy in this situation. Even if the Type 5 comes into the game, I'd say the E100 is still better. But you're going to see here why trading alpha is so good. And I also ran supercharge on this. So I have calibrated and supercharged. So I aim my shot, have the best penetration I can going in, and the best shell velocity. Because the E100 shell velocity is slightly slow. And when you pump up your AP rounds to 271 and not let them lose penetration and let them gain shell velocity, it makes it a super good heavy tank. It allows you to make mid-range engagements possible in the E100 and making sure you're using your armor profile at mid-range the best. Probably the distance of where it maintains its best engagement, which is mid-range, right? Because people just won't spam heat at your cheeks so easily. A nice roll into that T30 across, right? Trading alpha, fantastic. And, I also want to mention, this is gameplay on the new map, Faust. I'm sorry I haven't done a map guide on this. Like I said, I've been super busy with Twister. But E100, fantastic stuff here. Easy to aim into that lower plate, fire away, immediately start angling the turret, and the Jagdpanzer E100 bounces my turret. Like I said, even though it's not the armor profile of the mouse, there is no standard round in the game, bar the Object 268, maybe, that goes, the FB183 that goes through your turret cheeks reliably. But keep in mind that the 268 and FB183 have to aim a lot, and by that time, you can usually mitigate damage by angling your turret in such a way that it will bounce, right, where they're hitting the strongest part. This E100, that guy's full health, I'm full health, I just put a shot into him right there. You're going to see this engagement kind of play out. And this is why I think running calibrated shells on the E100 is now a must, because while that 14.5 second reload with rammer is very enticing, I think the gain in heat penetration and HE penetration allow you to do so much more. You just have to be very careful with what you do, because you are on it's a 15.7 second reload, I believe, when you're running the calibrated shell. So you have to be quite careful about the situations you put yourself in. Because 640 with a heavy tank, it's great in a one-time trade, but if it comes down to a DPM war, you are at a disadvantage. So you need to be quite careful with what you're doing. You can't get yourself into a situation where you're just trying to where you're trying to burn tanks. You always need to keep it in a one-for-one trade situation. As you've seen me do in these games, in all three of these games, I'm not into a DPM war. This Object 268, angles back around the corner, and I hit him in his weak point as he turns around. I get another bounce from the E100, and I continue angling. The E100 is just, you know, I would say it's a staple. I mean, everyone tries to grind for this tank, and another reason why I think, you know, it is so good is, guys, the grind you take to get there is a lot better, especially looking at tiers 8 through 10, right? Think about the Tiger 2 versus the VKA. Tiger 2 is a much better heavy tank. I did a review guide on that, so if you want to go check that out, the gameplay is still the exact same. Please feel free to watch that in my tank reviews. And the E75 is so much better than the VKB. So, you know, just the tanks that you played before, you're getting so much more out of compared to the VKB, which has pretty thin sides and has a lot of trouble side scraping despite it being a rear mount turret, and the VKA, which is just not that good of a tank at all. Anyways, this tank is like a Jagdpanzer lost its turret, or excuse me, Jagdpanzer gained a turret but lost alpha. And that's why I like it so much, simply because you can really bully tanks if you know how to use your profile, if you know how to use alpha well, right? You know, knowing ammo types is so important. Being able to throw HE at the right time. I missed that shot. It doesn't have the greatest accuracy, but it has enough, right? You've seen me hit enough long-distance shots to know that when you aim and you take the time, you load the right shell, you're going through like 90% of the time, right? Anyways, this is why having a turret comes in handy so much. This Faust, you know, uni habits, right? I need to get this damage. HE into the back. Anyways, that's going to be the game that T62A cannot escape. If you enjoyed that content, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. I really hope, as always, I appreciate the opportunity to share my passion with you today, and I hope to see you next time. Make sure you watch Twister.